Well, hey, life group leaders, how's it going? I cannot believe we're coming within just weeks of the end of this Red Letters series, and I hope your life groups have been great. I know not everyone is doing the sermon series, but I'm praying each week for your groups that you're connecting, loving each other, serving together, coming to worship together, giving together, encouraging each other to be more and more like Christ. Because life groups are the lifeblood of the church, and we want to grow our life groups because right now people are feeling disconnected, isolated, alone more than ever. From our students feeling it, to parents, to adults, to empty nesters, to all ages and stages of life. That's why life groups are so essential, because they are a reflection of God's image, that we are together in community. Well, today's teaching, oh my gosh, it's one of the hardest. It's love your enemies. Now, I may or may not actually have a particular belt on. I don't know if you can see. If I were in better shape, you would be able to see it more clearly. So to all my Jayhawk friends, I love you because I have to. Yeah, no, of course that's never a good thing to be a response as a Christian, like, I love my enemy because I have to. But it's a good start. In fact, we can even cry out, God, I hate him so much. Well, that's a prayer. Start there. And so we'll see today in the message, if you're able to get online. I know that there are families out of town, and hopefully our internet connection works. It was down last week. We're working on it. We're trying to solve these challenges. But hopefully you can hear today's message where we talk about changing our perspective more in line with God's perspective toward our enemy. We start with praying for them and asking God to bless them and then do good by them. And those are hard things. But that's the abundant life that Jesus has called us to. To live life and live it abundantly means we shouldn't have bitterness or hatred in our heart. Now, some of you are like, I don't have any enemies, but we probably have macro level enemies. It's easy to make enemies, right? On the highway, waiting in line, it's like, doesn't it say 15 items or less? And you've got 37 and you're paying with a check. Are you kidding me? I don't know, maybe that's just me. So today's passage starts in Luke chapter 6, verse 27, and ends in verse 36. And there's this common love that God gives us to, like, or actually Jesus is saying, you all live by this common or global rule, which is an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. We get that idea, but he turns the global rule into the golden rule, which is to do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. Actually, the platinum rule is Jesus when he served at the Lord's Supper, at the Last Supper, by washing all of the apostles' feet. That was the lowliest of actions. And so we're really to love as Christ loved, not just do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But that's what Jesus is saying. It's like, you know what? Even the sinners and pagans can love those who love them. And some of us are stuck in that little quid pro quo relationship. And Jesus says, love your enemies. And so there's this idea of kingdom love, this child of God love, not just this common law of love that the world was living by. So he just turns everything upside down. So we talked, if you were engaging in your life group last week, we talked about the naked, bleeding, cutting, demon-possessed man in the cemetery. That's really, it both physically happened, and it's a metaphor for our lives apart from Christ, that we're spiritually dead. We're amongst the dead until Christ comes to us and we respond to his revelation of his grace. We talked about sharing your story because remember, Jesus healed him and then he said, go tell everybody, go to the Decapolis, the 10 cities, tell everybody, tell your family, friends, tell everybody that Jesus changes everything for everyone. And that's why the church exists, so that people's lives can be changed. We believe there's no problem on this earth that Jesus can't change. That is 100% true. And there's no other mission greater than that on this planet. So that's why you're a part of the church. Don't give up. Some of us get tired and exhausted. Don't give up. It's worth hanging in there. By the way, it's Reformation Sunday today, and we're reminded of Hebrews. We are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses, those that have gone before us, our forefathers and foremothers, from obviously the first church in Acts 2, but also the Reformation in 1517. This day marks that day when we said enough is enough. The church is getting off course. And this isn't a Protestant Catholic thing. It's all of us, always. Reformed and always reforming is the motto of the Presbyterian Church. You may not know that. But we are changed once and for all, and then always changing more in the likeness of Christ. That's why we say know, grow, show, go. So encourage your group to share stories of people maybe that you have of bitterness toward or unforgiveness toward. And I can think of more than one right now. And so these are stories that are best shared, obviously, in community. And, have some rules in your life group, like, hey, what gets shared here stays here. Or maybe you don't feel comfortable with your life group sharing. That's fine, but share with someone, because we've got to release this unforgiveness, this bitterness, so that we can live the abundant life. When we let bitterness and hatred toward our enemies creep in, it affects how we love the most significant relationships in our lives. Some of us think like, oh, I can, hate my enemy, but love my family. By the way, some of you have family who are your enemies, but we cannot compartmentalize. We end up giving our leftovers of love to those we love the most when we are hating our enemies. So we cannot justify sin. We talked about that sin is always justifying its actions, and that's straight from the enemy himself, which is Satan. Of course, we're not called to love Satan, our enemy. We are called to love even people who don't do anything good for us or even actively persecute us, like Jesus, his last words, forgive them for they know not what they do. So that's remarkable. So my hope is that you engage your group with this hard charge, this hard calling, this high calling. If you want to go deep, people talk about, that church isn't deep, whether, oh, Ryan doesn't preach deep sermon. It's not about deep sermons. It's not about information or knowledge. It's about surrender. How much control are you willing to surrender? Are you loving your enemies? I mean, these red letters of Jesus are taking us into the depths of following Christ. Are we tithing regularly and consistently? Are we loving our enemies? Are we actually trusting Jesus in every situation? Oh my goodness, this is hard. But it's what we're called to do until Jesus returns. So church, be encouraged by this charge to get your life group together. Some of you meet once a month. Man, I would encourage you to get together for this one. Maybe it's been 3 weeks. You might want to go early on this. Or if it's next week, then dig into this one. Love your enemies. And lastly, go Cats.